We have with us, joining us via Skype, Dr. Michael Nelson, and he is the clinical director for MindMend. That's in Northern Nevada. But he's here today with us because he is the medical advisor for Vitalica Plus. And we're going to be talking about, we've talked on this show before and talked about some of the research having to do with broccoli and broccoli seeds, and how this is something that has been shown to be effective in creating some good results with kiddos on the spectrum, especially in the, as I understand it, in the realm of speech. We're going to talk to Dr. Nelson about that, and why this particular Vitalica Plus, the broccoli seed extract that they're putting out, why we should all be aware of that, because a lot of people are starting to peddle things having to do with the broccoli, and you want to do what's going to be effective and be safe, and there's a good reason why we want to be talking about Vitalica Plus having to do with those things. So, Dr. Nelson, Dr. Michael Nelson, welcome to Let's Talk Autism with Shannon and Nancy.
Thank you.
We're thrilled to have you here with us.
Tell us a little bit about your background, Dr. Nelson. Very impressive background, I might add. Tell us about yourself.
Sure. I began my journey in health really as a child, when I would look for ways to actually improve my health. I was an athlete all my life, and so there was always a degree of performance enhancement that I was trying to achieve. And obviously, you turn to your diet and your lifestyle to try and do those things. And so that got me interested in biology and chemistry and biochemistry. And I went on to get an undergrad degree in respiratory therapy, where I worked in both medical centers here in Reno, Nevada. And I worked in the neonatal intensive care. And I started that when I was much younger. I was 23 years old when I began working in the neonatal unit. I was the youngest member in that unit at the time, and really gained the appreciation of the resiliency of the human organism while I was working with those premature babies, seeing them literally under a pound that would fit in the palm of my hand. So I went on from there to get my doctorate at the University of Western States in Portland, Oregon. And really enjoyed that. My doctorate is in chiropractic, and I practice functional medicine. So I've been actually practicing functional medicine for going on 25 years now. And I learned from the founder of functional medicine about 27 years ago, Dr. Jeffrey Bland, which many people are familiar with his work. And I set up my practice in 1993 as a private practitioner practicing functional medicine. Nobody knew what it was. People could understand the concepts, but they really didn't know the actual name functional medicine. And even today, I think there's still some questions on what is functional medicine. And in a nutshell, functional medicine is trying to connect the dots of the systems that are involved in the conditions that people come to see you with, and not separate you out into the individual silos, and look at a systems-based approach to one's health to uncover the root cause of their condition, so that we can make efficient recommendations and interventions that will help to essentially reconnect the various systems so that you can feel better and act better and reduce risk.
As in, let's not just slap a pill on it and ignore what was happening to begin with. So we love that. But let's segue into why Vitalica Plus it got interested in broccoli seed extracts, and why this is a really growing interest for so many people in the autism community. Talk to us about the broccoli seed extract.
Sure. So many years ago, I started to become interested in, obviously, detoxification. And as you kind of move into that realm of understanding, you start to look at different dietary considerations that one might want to utilize to help improve detoxification, and broccoli stands at the forefront of that. So I became very interested in understanding more about different supplementation regimes that you could use to enhance detoxification for people that had sluggish detox, like an autistic spectrum disorder child. And broccoli extracts started to come into the picture. This is many years ago. This is probably 8-9 years ago now. And I became aware of a company that was actually growing their own broccoli seed and working with Johns Hopkins, who were really the forefathers of this whole emerging concept of using broccoli as a chemoprotectant for carcinogenesis for cancer that we're primarily looking at.
Dr.
And
Nelson, I just want to and keep that train of thought, but I want to just interrupt you for a minute to just point out that this is solid medical science and testing that we're talking here, because you're talking Johns Hopkins, and this is very solid research backing this up, broccoli as a detoxifier of the system, correct?
Correct. So what Hopkins did is they started to understand that broccoli, the people that ate the most amount of broccoli, 5 to 7 servings per week, had a lower incidence of different types of cancers. And so they were trying to figure out which actual active ingredient within the broccoli was responsible for this. And so they pulled broccoli off the store shelf and they analyzed it. And what they found is not all broccoli was created equal. And some had an active component and others didn't. And so they started to try and figure out how could they design a study when they didn't know what they were actually giving the patients. So they came to the company that I'm an advisor for, Caudell Seed, and asked them to start to look for cultivars or plant species that had the highest concentration of the active ingredient associated with this chemoprotective effect. And so they hired us, and we started working on developing richer and more robust cultivars of broccoli so that we could actually have them used in studies. And over the course of the last 17 years, we've developed multiple strains of broccoli that we grow specifically for the seed, because the seed has the highest concentration of this active ingredient known as glucoraphanin.
But I want to stop you there, because you talked about cultivating the broccoli and making it the most potent. But we need to make sure that everybody knows that this is non-GMO. This has not been genetically modified, correct?
That's correct. So we use hybridized techniques, which is essentially taking a plant and stressing it so that you can actually cause it to produce more of a specific attribute. And it's done all the time. It's done in nature. Nature does this randomly, depending upon where the plant's growing up. If it's closer to the equator, it's going to have maybe more protective components in the plant than if it was grown in North Dakota. And so there's different ways in which you can stress a plant. And we did that so that we could actually express more of this very potent ingredient called glucoraphanin. And we've gone through multiple iterations. There's absolutely zero GMO here. And we use organic farming techniques to cultivate all of our plants. We own the land, and we own the plants, and we own the seeds.
Impressive, really impressive. So that's just one of the reasons, the many reasons why because we were talking before about that there are many products available on the market, but you guys, those are two of the reasons. It's non-GMO and they're organically grown plants. What are some other differences that make Vitalica Plus a much different product for if you're gonna go down this direction? I really want to encourage people to buy your product, but tell them why.
Yeah, so I think what's important to understand is not all broccoli extracts are created equal by any means. Many just really don't have not been standardized to the active component, which is glucoraphanin. And so we go to great lengths to standardize our product, our raw material, so that we can get reproducible results. And that's why clinicians literally all over the world specify our product. And we sell raw material to a lot of professional companies that will use our product, and then we have our own product, Vitalica Plus. And the difference between our product and maybe a competing product is the fact that, number one, we grow our own seeds, we own all of our own patents on our seeds, and so we can handle the material from what we say from plant to capsule. So we know everything in between. And then we take that plant and we harvest it just for the seed, not for the broccoli. And then we take that seed and we express all the oil, and the oil has some unique benefits as well. And we won't get into that. And then we take all that, what we call seed mash, and extract out the active ingredient using no solvents. We use CO2. It's a very That's a very costly process, but it's the best process for preserving the active components.
And the word sulforaphane, is that the actual extract? What does that word mean? What's the definition?
So here's the other unique difference between us and maybe another competing product is sulforaphane is the byproduct of the metabolism of glucoraphanin. So let me explain. Glucoraphanin is basically sitting in the seed or in the capsule, and it needs to get activated by an enzyme, and that enzyme is called myrosinase. And we've all tasted myrosinase activation when we bite into a radish and it's cool, and then it turns kind of hot or spicy. And that's the cell wall breaking down and exposing the glucoraphanin to myrosinase. And you taste it and you feel it. We call that the mustard oil bomb. When that glucoraphanin gets activated by myrosinase, it produces sulforaphane. And so what we've done is we've actually captured the myrosinase and we recombine it with our glucoraphanin in a very specific proprietary way, and we then put it in a capsule, and then we deliver it to the individual or the patient. And that's really what makes us quite different than anything on the market. Nobody else has gone through the rigors like we have to actually accomplish this. It's a very tedious process. It took us lots and lots of time and effort to establish this process. And again, that's why clinicians all over the world are really using ours as the standard, especially when it comes to research projects.
And why use this product with those with autism spectrum disorder?
Well, some of your listeners may already be aware of the Zimmerman study that came out in 2013 that showed that ASD kids that took they actually used our seed to grow their sprouts, and sprouts have a little bit of myrosinase in it. When they used our seeds and they gave it to the actual children, they saw a tremendous improvement in their behavior, and they saw it very quickly. And especially when they compared them to the individuals that did not get the actual glucoraphanin and sulforaphane ultimately. And so that really got the eye of a lot of people, parents and clinicians, as to a beneficial product that they could use in the ASD community. And it made perfect sense to me, and I think many other clinicians, that this would work because, as anybody knows, ASD is a pleomorphic condition, and there's a multitude of things that are taking place, from inflammation in the brain to gut dysbiosis to elevated lipopolysaccharides that are leaking into the bloodstream from leaky gut, to poor detoxification, to all these neuronal distortions that take place. And it turns out that sulforaphane addresses a multitude of these conditions, from the detoxification to the low glutathione to the improvement in the blood-brain barrier, the gut barrier. So it made complete sense that this would work. And then more recently, the study came out, as you guys may have saw, that there's mutations in the mitochondrial DNA of these ASD children that are now characterizing these. And it's been emerging along the way. And that sulforaphane actually participates in improving the mitochondrial bioenergetics, which I think is really important for any of the children that are suffering from the ASD condition, because the mitochondria are really the target of so much of the therapies out there today with regard to ASD.
Well, okay, now we've got probably parents around the world listening to this interview going, how do I get this?
Yeah, how can they order it?
How?
Let's start there.
Well, we have a website. It's vitalicaplus.com. I gave you guys some information to Samantha, I believe.
Yes.
So she could probably pass that out. We did get a kind of a nice offer from our company to support this effort, so she can pass that along to your listenership.
Well,
But
and I just
we're
want to
gonna-
say it's really, I'm going to bring it up right here. It's really generous that, for the first 100 viewers who take advantage of this, you've set up a code. And again, it's just for the first 100 where you can get 75% off. But there's a code, and Samantha's going to put it up on the screen that you need to enter in when you're ordering it. So it's VP33. Those of you who listen instead of watch.
And we have the URL.
And so it's www.vitalicaplus.com, and this is the code that you would put in to get 75% off. That's only for the first 100 bottles, but that's incredibly generous. And I just want to say, when we talk about a product here, we don't, Autism Live isn't getting paid at all.
No.
There's no kickback here.
And we're very cautious as to what product we might
Yes.
recommend, which is why we talked to Dr. Nelson extensively about the research behind this product. This is solid medical research with
But I do want to
solid
say,
testing.
people need to make decisions for themselves.
Absolutely.
But if you are going to do a broccoli, this is the one to do for the reasons that we just talked about. And you can get it 75% off right now with this code if you're one of the first 100. But Dr. Nelson, let's talk a little bit about, of course, everybody's always concerned about safety. Is there any kind of concern that parents should have, like about, does it clearly say on the bottle how much you should give, and does it matter what the weight of the child is? What do we need to know?
Yeah, so the one great thing about Vitalica Plus is that it's in a very small capsule, so the ingestibility is very easy. If it's a child that doesn't really have the capability to swallow, then you can sprinkle it on some applesauce and mix it in. It won't distort the flavor, and you can stir it in there and maybe give it in the applesauce. The age range varies, so and weight varies as well. What we typically recommend is if you're dealing with a younger ASD child that's let's say they're above 3 and below maybe 8, then 1 to 2 capsules per day would be sufficient. And if you're dealing with a older ASD kid or even an adult, we recommend 3 capsules. The side effect profile is literally not there. What we have heard and what some people have reported is there might be an initial gastrointestinal upset, and that's the extent of the side effects that we've heard or seen. And that makes sense, though, and I'll explain that, because not only is Vitalica Plus help to promote all these antioxidant protection mechanisms, but it's also has a way to normalize the microflora in the gut. So it's got some antimicrobial benefits as well. So we know for sure in clinical studies, again, that when you give it to people with H. pylori, it will eradicate the H. pylori. So there's an antimicrobial benefit. And going back to the plant kingdom, that's exactly why the plant has it, is it acts as an antimicrobial so that plants will not eat it. That's why the highest concentration exists in the seed. And then it slowly gets less and less as the plant gets more mature. So that's why we use the seed. So those would be the kind of the guidelines I'd give if you're using it with a child. And there's just so many other benefits to using a product like this for even adults too. I just got done speaking in September at the Cancer Control Society meeting, the 44th annual Cancer Control, and I was one of the keynote speakers there, and I talked all about the benefits of this type of product for cancer prevention as well.
Is this a product you take yourself, Dr. Nelson?
Every day, yeah. Every single day.
Well, and we know we've got a lot of moms who are watching who have autoimmune issues, and you know, that I'm one of those moms, and we have problems detoxifying too.
We're under severe stress as mothers of children with autism.
So this could be something that's very beneficial for us, because we've done segments before on the show about how autism parents are more likely to be diagnosed with some certain forms of cancer. So this is a great thing for us, you know, to be taking along with our children to help protect us in that respect as well. Yes.
One quick add. I know we'll probably have at the end of this, but a lot of people talk about goitrogens in these cruciferous vegetables because obviously broccoli is part of the cruciferous family. Our product contains 0 goitrogens, so there's no risk for developing any interference with your thyroid function when you're using our product. There's 0. We check this for it, so we can assure you that you are not getting any goitrogenic effect as well.
Wonderful.
Okay, very good.
Very impressive.
Well, thank you for your breakdown of how this works, what it is, Vitalica Plus, why it's good for us, and very impressive, Dr. Nelson. And my son's doctor, who does not prescribe any supplements, doesn't believe in any of them, said, look into this one, because, and he's about as conservative as they come. He said, this has solid science behind it.
There you go. And so go to vitalicaplus.com, and for the first 100 bottles, the code is VP33, and then you can get that at 75% off. That's amazing. We thank you so much for making that possible for our viewers. We thank you, Dr. Michael Nelson, and we'll hope to have you back on the show again sometime.
Love to. I appreciate it. Thank you.
Thank you for joining us
so much.